The river is a very special place to us, and like all of that red zone all the way down there could be something magical for everyone to play with.
The red zone is a result of land damage from the Canterbury earthquakes. It's a combination of liquefaction and lateral spread. Along this river corridor, parts of the land moved by up to 3 metres sideways towards the river. Now, it's possible to repair that land, to remediate it, but it's expensive and it's risky. So our approach has been to say, well, why don't we create a corridor of open space, publicly owned, running from the city to the sea, and create a green spine, a piece of land where we can site key infrastructure for flood protection and for stormwater treatment, but also to provide amenity for people to enjoy it and to provide a habitat for natural ecosystems.
We've got the opportunity to create a much more natural environment than we currently have that performs functions that are really useful to society, such as buffering flood flows, but also provide really useful and helpful social aspects of getting us engaged with the environment.
I feel that there is an opportunity here that if we are brave and we are bold and we do create a more natural representation of an Indigenous functioning ecosystem, people will come to see it.
Definitely love it and really passionate about not only this being a place where we're from, but a place that we can be.
We're here in Bexley. It dropped quite a lot in the earthquake, and so now the level between the river and the land, well, it's about the same. In fact, sometimes in really high tides, the water level in the river is higher than the land.
Extensive parts of the city are at risk of flooding. We envisage that we'll move the flood protection back from the river and create a series of terraces sloping down towards the river. These will be replanted with natural ecosystems, with wetlands, with little bits of forest, with native bush. When the river rises, the wetlands and the native vegetation in front of it absorb some of the energy of the floodwater, and the stock bank is not so vulnerable to damage.
The Avon is a big part of Christchurch, and it's a bit grubby at the moment, and we can't really fish out of there like we used to or do anything in it.
I would like to see like the fish, because right now all the fish is living in like dirty water when they could be living in clean fresh water where could be happy. I mean, because they're people too. Eels and whitebait and ducks and fish, they're all people.
There is an opportunity with extra space created in this built environment to put in some natural treatment options for water.
Where stormwater comes off the roads and the roofs of houses nearby, we can run them into a wetland. You know, we can drop out the sediment from it, and then we can flush the water through a wetland, and that will clean out 80% of the pollution before it drops into the river, which is really exciting.
We think perhaps on one side of the river we'll have a good, strong cycleway, walkway, promenade, pathway, and that might be the more active side of the river. But perhaps on the other side, it's a little bit more naturalised, it's a little bit more smaller pathways in which you can explore and discover and different types of activity, because there's plenty of room. It's just making sure that everything works together.
Having a bike track, it would just be like you could go to anywhere that you wanted following the river. Like the river was the guide to it or kind of thing.
At a regular set of intervals along the river, we imagine creating landings. So these are gathering places where we'd have a kiosk, perhaps with a little bit of retail. There'd be a car park, so they'd be close to a bridge, you know, where a road crosses the river. You'd be able to park your car, stop. There might be a barbecue area, perhaps a playground for the kids.
We need more stuff in this area to attract people. It needs more parks, just more stuff.
I think it'd be a great social space for whānau, for families, to have picnics and barbecues, and I think also for events like concerts.
Around here we don't have much entertainment after the earthquakes, so it'd be really good for the kids.
A lot of negativity was associated with the red zone. It's still, you can still do good things here, yeah.
This is the Richmond Community Garden. Yeah, this is a great example, I think, of how we like to see these edges develop so that, they become an expression of the community, spilling out onto the river corridor, and they provide both value and amenity for the people who live next to it.
These houses don't really engage with the space anymore, so sort of restitching and reconnecting some houses back along the existing streets helps people feel that, reconnect with the memory of the space that these streets once existed.
When I was a boy growing up, my grandmother lived across the river from Ōtākaro Avon, the Margaret Mayhew playground. And there was no outward expression in the built form of Christchurch of her culture, her whakapapa. Even if it's only bringing back, mass plantings of indigenous species along the river all the way down to the sea, that creates a corridor of connectivity.
I can't harvest harakeke if it's not growing and it's not, flourishing. So it's all about that, looking after our environment to then be able to practice our custom, our traditional art forms, our mahi ngakai. All of that has got to do with our environment.
It's about stewardship, it's about experiencing nature, and I guess with that comes a respect and knowing that we're cleaning up the stormwater and making the river a better place and a place we can be proud of.
One of the big ideas is to keep as much memory and identity of the place, trying to keep the streets wherever possible, the naming of the streets, so there's still that identity for people.
It just overwhelms you with how many different households there were that were affected there, and each one of those households has their own story to tell. So it's really important that those memories are retained and recorded somewhere. People may not want to access them, but others certainly do.
I think we need to honour its history, and we need to be brave, we need to be bold, and we need to follow it through.
It's a place that people can come to and remember, restore, and have fun. It is such a substantial connector that can create a whole new way of living in East Christchurch.